What if Godzilla was rated R? We've come close to getting this experience a handful of times with movies like Godzilla vs. Destroyer, Godzilla -1, and I'm sure for the time, the original Gojira film was likely the closest to rated R when you take into account the era in which it was released. A decade after World War II, where talks of war and destruction were still too fresh in memory for far too many. But still, no Godzilla or MonsterVerse movies have attempted to go full rated R, even though with a main character like this, it would be easy to figure out how to achieve that rating, I think. The last two Godzilla films, -1 and The New Empire, both had dark themes and subject matter in them that could have been crafted to deliver that non-kid friendly experience, but still both decided to do just enough to keep that rated R rating away. To me personally, -1 feels like Jurassic Park in the sense that it feels like it could be a rated R movie, just without the excessive gore, nudity, and language to warrant that rating. And The New Empire in particular actively went out of its way to avoid being rated R, to the means of making the blood in the movie look like the Nickelodeon green slime. Even when biologically, it makes no sense, and it's not like they haven't shown red blood in this franchise before. Obviously they wanted to hit the family audience with The New Empire, so having people's bodies implode into red mist like what should have happened right here was never gonna fly. The MonsterVerse films actively decide when and when not to be accurate and rated R, which in the world of kaiju would really just stand for rated real. If the threat is a bug or a reptile-like beast, they're fair game to get brutalized, but usually off-screen or in angles that skew the view of the carnage, which is standard practice for most PG-13 films. But when it came to the more recognizable creatures, mammal-like titans or like the Kongs who resemble large apes and humans, the more rated R-like scenes, focused on the Kongs for example, were toned down to the extent of almost being cartoony. Except the heads on the pikes thing. That was pretty savage there, especially with their nearly human-like faces. But let's turn our attention to the scene with Kong ripping the dead wart dog in half. So when this was happening, did you happen to think to yourself, why are the guts and blood green? Even when the scrapes and cuts on the beasts in other shots show they should have red blood just like the Kongs. So Alistair made a video a few years back that explains this green blood situation and why it exists, which I think sums up the green blood decision in the new movie pretty well, so here I'll just show you now.
In an almost cartoonish fashion, the blood is bright green, which is interesting because in the previous films, these monsters have had normal red blood. But in this B-roll for the film, we can see what the blood looked like during their shoot, and it was originally meant to be red. We can see the gore being dropped onto the glass, and there's no fluorescent green blood to be found. It's common knowledge that due to censorship laws, moments of extreme violence can drastically alter the ratings of a film. For years, video games have been altered in different regions to either change the color of the blood from red to green or black, or even removed entirely, like PlayerUnknown's Battleground, where in China, the game sports green blood on human enemies. This is due to strict censorship laws over in China, and funnily enough, China is one of the biggest countries Warner Bros. Has been marketing towards, so they potentially required Legendary to change the color of the blood to avoid any controversy.
But what if the creators of these kaiju films finally got the go-ahead to make that elusive rated R Godzilla film? What would it really be like? Well, Breno, an animator here on YouTube that we've covered before on the channel, decided he was going to take things into his own hands and create a battle between Godzilla and a handful of famous Toho kaijus where nothing was held back for a PG-13 rating. Let's take a quick look at the animation. Breno's work just goes to show that a rated R, violent take on Godzilla could work. And truthfully, this wasn't much further off from what we got back in the Toho days. A lot of people forget that many of those old Godzilla films were kinda violent, especially for the time where CGI didn't exist. But Toho never really aimed to get that rated R, extra level of showing lots of blood and gory kills. But stuff like this did happen. Another channel here on YouTube, Vision VFX, made an animation showing how this would look in the MonsterVerse, and well, yeah, brutal. So make sure to go check these channels out when you're done here. I'll leave a link down below. As always, everyone, Now that fans have shown that a rated R approach would work almost amazingly with Godzilla and other kaiju outside of, not being very kid-friendly. But we have to remember that a rated R Godzilla film wouldn't be for kids, and there's good money in rated R these days, with them making more at the box office than ever before. So could a live-action rated R Godzilla film actually work right now in the modern times? Well, like I said, R-rated features are more prominent than ever to the general audience. The uprising of streaming as well has allowed more and more productions to be made that normally were confined to channels like HBO or Showtime, and we're actually seeing a few rated R movies getting around $1 billion at the box office, which shows that adults will go see movies just as much as kids and families. And we've even started to see the rebirth of mature rated video games coming in the form of Helldivers and Space Marine 2. Audiences nowadays are just craving a bit of that over-the-top violent fun. So while a R-rated Godzilla film may not have worked in the past, it definitely would have a fighting chance in modern times. Let's focus on the MonsterVerse now. What would a R-rated chapter in this universe look like? Well, we came real close twice in the earlier days of the franchise. Godzilla 2014 almost had a scene showing the mangled corpses of some of the miners who were crushed during the introduction to Dagon in the Titan scene. Which apparently Dagon might not be Godzilla's fellow species member anymore, which you could learn more on in my recent video right here, so check that out after this one. But the closest to rated R the franchise has gotten yet has to come from Kong Skull Island, with easily the most carnage in the series, both on beasts and humans. This film likely had long discussions about where it truly sat on the rating scale, with shots like this, and this. Skull Island reached almost Jurassic Park, and I'm talking like the good old days of Jurassic Park, levels of creature feature violence and gore. I'm pretty sure if the movie had one more cuss word or arm being dismembered, that it was probably gonna get that R rating. But the primary reason why Skull Island pushed the boundaries on its ratings wasn't due to the monster's violent interactions. It was likely due to the abundant supply of human characters that were able to be thrown to the slaughter. There are more on-screen human fatalities in Kong Skull Island than the rest of the series combined. And these fatalities were not hidden off-screen, most of the carnage was front and center. That Mother Longlegs scene definitely got some of the ratings people's panties up in a bunch. And this proves a very valid point in this entire rated R Godzilla film discussion. Godzilla could literally vomit into another monster's mouth, and boil the beast's insides until it all turns to mush on screen. But since they're gigantic fantasy characters, the violent manner of the attacks don't really warrant that R rating. Humans are always the catalyst to receive that rating. But here's the catch, it would have to take time away from Godzilla to focus on the humans below. And since Godzilla is so much larger than us, it's hard to create any R-rated scenes, unless we see the after effects of an attack where bodies are crushed and mangled. But to really get the R rating, we would need to see some more personal attack scenes. Giant monsters, as terrifying as they are, just aren't suited to have intimate interactions with humans. Godzilla -1 Goji and Kong when he was back on Skull Island were about as big as you can get before the uber size starts to take away from the R-rated fear. So here's how I think the perfect rated R Godzilla film can exist. It's pretty simple actually. Just have more smaller creatures in the movie. Or maybe even humanoid-like aliens or underground dwellers. They can constantly be shown shredding each other to pieces while Godzilla and any other massive kaiju can focus on their typical destructive ways. But like the fan animations we showed earlier, actually allow the fights to be as violent as they should be. The MonsterVerse film creators knew this, and knew it would lead them closer to the rated R rating. So really everyone, all that needs to be done is to just stop purposefully trying to make these movies not rated R. A kaiju experience, just like real life catastrophes are rated R events on their own. I can't guarantee a rated R Goji film would even succeed, but we won't know till someone gets enough balls to try. What do you guys think? So if you enjoyed this video and you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to go ahead. Make sure to hit the bell and like the video. Get the algorithm all fired up for us. As always everyone, this has been Jacob, and I'll see you in the next one.